just because of the size of my hand, so I'm going to resort to using the screwdriver method here. And that is all there is to that. Now it's just a matter of more prying, and I usually start on the inside where the battery cover is, but however, you can start wherever you actually get the right purchase. Now, because of the heating, the thermal pads here, there we go. Because of the thermal pads, you will run into issues sometimes with the initially pulling it off the first time. If you ever have to go back in here, you will also run into issues again. And I see I also missed the power button, which I know I talked about. So I'm going to quickly try to get that out real quick here. And that's removed. And again, just gentle force. It does require sometimes what feels to be uncomfortable force, but it is unfortunately necessary. And there is your palm rest, and that's all there is to it. As you can see here, unfortunately, parts of the pads sometimes stay behind, and I'm actually going to remove that and try to replace it appropriately back on the palm rest. Okay, next now the instructions I've seen indicate to remove the system board completely. I'm not going to do that. I find that it's a pain in the neck, and that generally speaking it is not needed. There are 2 screws, however, you do have to remove in order to pull the system board up enough so that you can get to the memory module. That was the first screw, and the other one right here is next to where the display is. And there's also, and it may not be completely required because of the way that I do it, it may not be required to remove and unplug the different connectors here. However, this one, which I don't believe I did originally, and then this one for the display, do need to be removed. I'm actually going to try here, not removing, and just to see what I come up with. And as you can see, if you're careful, you do have access to the board. So what I'm going to do to protect the display here, I'm just going to use my 15% off card for Microsoft certifications, and I have now successfully exposed the memory. Now, this is probably not the ideal way to do this. However, again, I don't wish to completely remove the system board since I'm not replacing it. As long as you're here and you do this delicately, you should not have any issues. If you're concerned, don't hesitate to disconnect those cables and just remove the board completely. Okay, now here we have my brand new G-Skill memory, which I neglected to unseal the box originally, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and you can all be bored to tears by it. I picked this up off of New Egg, I believe for approximately $23–24 US. And this is the SODIMM module. Now, I went with this one because it has a heat spreader. What I honestly don't know is if it's actually going to work and fit properly in here, so we're about to find out. If this doesn't work, I'm actually going to wind up using, keeping the RAM that's in here now and throwing this into my Mini 9. So all we do here is you have tabs right here. Just push on the side, pop the memory up, and that's all there is to it. Now we're going to take the new memory here, assuming I can get it out of the package, make sure that it's aligned properly, put it in at an angle, and use gentle force. And again, this is where some people prefer to pull the system board out completely, and then once it's lined up and in properly, you just push down until the clips lock into place. And essentially, that's all there is to replacing the memory. Now we'll go back through and reverse the process and reinstall the components. In this case, we are going to go ahead and put the board back properly here. And note with the connections on the side that sometimes you will have to reposition things accordingly. I will remove that since we're no longer worried about the display. and begin putting the screws back in to secure the system board. Now, as you can see, that it appears that the RAM that I bought with the heat spreader seems to fit properly, but we'll find out for sure in just a moment here as I'm tightening everything back down. I don't see any weird bulges, so I think we're probably alright at this point. Everything looks to be good, so I believe we can now reverse the process and begin reassembling everything. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put the palm rest back in, or rather the palm rest bracket. Again, this is very easy to do. Fortunately or unfortunately, actually everything that you've done to this point is much easier to do the other way around. And as you can see, I made a slight mistake here and had one of my cables here go underneath the board. I'm not actually sure what this cable is for, and I don't see any indication as to what it does. It's about one of the speaker locations, but I really don't know what it's for. I may have to look into that further on eventually. As you can see, this is giving me a little bit of fit here, but we managed to get it in. Okay, now we put the palm rest bracket on. As you can see, make sure your thermal pads are lined up properly, and we can go ahead and reinstall here. And please note, I'm not looking at the display on the camera to making sure I'm getting all of this, but I believe that I am. And I mean, if there's any questions, that's what the wonderful forums of my Dumbman are for. And now I'm going to go ahead and plug the Bluetooth module back in real quick here. And then I'm going to plug the speakers back in. In theory, at any rate, I'm going to plug the speakers back in. Okay, there we go. Now, one thing I ran into initially, when putting the actual palm rest back on, I did run into issues with the cables here, so you may need to do some repositioning as well. Also, very important, don't forget to do the power button. It's very easy to accidentally overlook it. I did not, however, the first time I did this. Almost did just now, though. And I will screw the bracket back into place here. Again, there's only 4 screws. Very easy to do. And what I try to do oftentimes is just get them in the right spot first and then just screw everything back in. And you don't need a lot of pressure when tightening these. Generally speaking, the components are very delicate. The case can be very delicate. So you want to, use enough force to get everything in there, but you don't want to, you don't want to crank it like you're cranking the lug nuts onto a car. And that is all there is to it for the replacement of the palm rest bracket. Okay, we're still actually not done with the palm rest bracket. We still have the 5 screws we took out to replace on the underside. So I'm going to go ahead and position them properly right now. And then I will go ahead and tighten them. Okay, here we go. Apologize for the interruption there. We're just going to tighten these back into place real quick here. Again, you don't need a whole lot of force tightening these down, just enough to